Hi loves, welcome back. Today we're going to be trying out the brand new Haus Labs Triclone Skin Tech Concealer. I'm really excited about this because if you know me, you know how obsessed I am with the Haus Labs Triclone Skin Tech Foundation. This is one of my all-time favorites. I'm currently in the shade 250 Light Medium Neutral. It's a bit too light at the moment. I probably need shade 260. So lately, whenever I do wear this, I'll mix it in with another skin tint just to kind of balance it out. But if the concealer is as good as a foundation, then we're probably going to have a new favorite because that one is truly, I think, a foundation that you could use for any occasion. And the concealer has some really good claims. So we're gonna test it out and do a little first impressions review and wear test. So grab a snack, get cozy, and let's get into it and have some girl time. So I was able to get mine early access on the Sephora app. I'm not 100% sure when it's gonna be in stores, but I will leave all the info in the description box below. There's a lot of good claims with this, like I said. So let's do a little deep dive. So this says it's a formula that delivers comfortable, undetectable coverage without compromising your skin. It comes in 31 different shades and it's suitable for all skin types. So there's a lot of great benefits such as a long wearing, depuffing, hydrating, brightening, fragrance free. I'm gonna do one side with a sponge, one side with a brush. I normally always use a brush nowadays because it gives better coverage. So I picked up the color 21 Light Medium Neutral. I really love the packaging. It's just simple, sleek. Feels really creamy, but also a little bit thicker. So I'm curious about the coverage. And I'm using my Anissa Beauty angled concealer brush. Just gonna press that in and blend it outwards a little bit. So the formula does feel a little bit thicker and it gives some coverage. This color is a little bit too light for me. I would probably ideally maybe go up a shade or two just to make it a little bit closer to my skin tone, but it still works. That is actually so pretty. It is a little bit thicker, but it has good blendability. I just wish the color was a little bit more neutral just because it's so light, but I think it's still gonna work once I have the rest of the makeup on. I have a little bit of like, I don't even know what this is. Sometimes this happens to me like around my mouth. It'll get a little bit kind of red and like splotchy after eating certain kinds of fruit. So I think I'm low-key probably allergic to certain kinds of fruit, but I don't know. Let's just cover it up. That blends so nicely. I can never get concealer shades right, but I think that still looks really good. I love the formula of it because it actually covers up. It's not totally light coverage. Let's try the other side now, and I'm gonna use a sponge. You can kind of probably see how the formula is a bit thicker. Medium buildable coverage. I can totally see that with this concealer, and I love that. I'm gonna use the e.l.f. Camo Concealer Sponge on the other side. Minus the color, I think the formula itself is really nice and comfortable. It's a little bit thicker, but it blends still really nicely into the skin. You probably don't really need to use a ton of this product, in my opinion, to get that good coverage, unless you really want intense coverage and, you know, the formula is buildable. But both with a sponge and with a brush, I think they blend into the skin very seamlessly. I'll probably end up getting the shade 22 or 23, I'm thinking, because this is way too light for my liking. I think it's still doable with the skin tint and everything that I'm going to use, but I'm loving the coverage though regardless. It doesn't also look like it's overly dewy or matte. It has a really nice natural finish, which I personally really like. I love something really hydrating on the under eyes though, don't get me wrong, but I know that those kind of formulas sometimes can be a little bit more creasy on the eyes and they can just settle into those fine lines. So that's the only thing, but it looks really good. I definitely feel like it looks more natural with a sponge. So if you want more of a go-to like natural kind of makeup look, I think you might love a sponge more. I'm also not noticing it creasing excessively right now on my under eyes. Usually, I mean, I'm gonna set it regardless with powder, but typically whenever I'm like usually waiting to set my makeup, it's just creasing excessively in this area. Not that this is claiming to be a self-setting concealer or anything. I'm just noticing that it's not overly hydrating, so it's not really settling into those fine lines excessively, which I really love. Because I have a ton of fine lines, which is normal, totally fine, but some concealers will accentuate that a little bit more than others. It's just also very skin-like, but it still definitely covers up what you needed to without feeling or looking cakey, dry, heavy. So I'm gonna finish up the rest of my makeup. Like I said, the Haus Labs foundation is a bit too light for me right now, and especially with this concealer, I want something that is closer to my skin. So I'm going to use the Hourglass Hydrating Veil Skin Tint. I've been really loving this lately. I'm still kind of testing it out, but this is so pretty. Every time that I've worn it, it wears so nicely throughout the day. And this one's in the color 9. To give more of a skin-like finish, I always like to rub my foundation or skin tints in with my fingers first and then follow up with a brush. Now I think it looks so much better. This is so pretty, the skin tint and the concealer. I like the combination of them together, honestly. I do feel like I want a little bit more coverage on the sponge side. I don't mind the sponge side, but I think I prefer a little bit more. Unless you're just into something super natural for like a no makeup look, then you'd probably prefer it with the sponge, but I think I like it more with a brush. Otherwise, I feel like I have to use more product to get more coverage. So I would rather just use a brush, you know, but I think either tool will work. I'm gonna go ahead and set with the Hourglass Veil Translucent Setting Powder. I'm actually almost out of this. I have a little guy right here. This is all that I have left. I'm gonna get the big size whenever I run out of this because this is so blurring on the skin. I like to get the powder as close to my lash line as possible. Can't wait to see how this is gonna wear at the end of the day, because so far I'm loving it. I'm gonna go ahead and set the rest of my makeup. I'm gonna use a combination of these two pressed powders from Charlotte Tilbury. We have the shade 1 and medium. Pretty much just dabble into both, and then I'm gonna just set everything else. I'm gonna do a little bit of the Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer Contour Palette. I'm actually gonna take a bit of that banana shade in here. I've been loving this palette. It smells so good. So I'm gonna take that banana color and a little bit, I'm just gonna kind of dust that on the under eye area. I've been loving doing this. Just gives another element of brightness. Not that I really need it because I know my under eyes are pretty light, but I love the formula of the powder. I wish that this powder was sold separately because I love what it does to the skin after I do all of my makeup. It's just a nice little topper. And I'm gonna use a little bit of the butter bronzer just to warm up my skin a bit. For blush, I'm going to do a little combination of the Juvia's Place Volume 4 blush. I'm going to take this Cotton Candy Pink. I just want a bit of a flush, but I'm going to add another product over top from Haus Labs. That is one of my all-time favorite things ever from the brand. Then I'm going to add the Bio Radiant Gel Powder Highlighter. This one is in Rose Quartz. It's a highlighter, but it's kind of like a baked blush. It's going to give you some color, really pretty glow, and I love to use this over top of blushes or even just as a blush in general. It is so pretty. I use this all the time whenever I want a really pretty pink glowy cheek. Let me do a quick little lip combo. This is pretty much like my go-to Rare Beauty Kind Words lip liner in the shade Wise. Hard Candy Lip Melt in the shade Meet Cute. It's a really pretty kind of glossy pink, basically like a tinted lip balm. I love this pink shade too, with like pink cheeks, pink glossy lips. It all ties together so nicely. I'm gonna use the Fix My Halo Hard Candy Highlighter in the inner corners. I love a stark white, sparkly inner corner highlight. It's my go-to. I'm gonna do a little brow liner. This one is from Makeup by Mario. I'm also going to apply some lower lash mascara. This is the Cleantopia from CoverGirl. Wow, this concealer does look really good. That skin tint from Hourglass is also like next level. Really, really good. I'm going to have to do a video on my favorite skin tints because there's so many good ones. And this Hourglass one I think is definitely becoming a favorite for me. And on my brows, if you're wondering, I'm using the brow frame from Dominique Cosmetics. This one is in the shade Soft Black Brown. That's what I used to fill in my entire brows. And then I topped it with the Rare Beauty brow gel over top. And to keep that hold, I just use the back of my tweezers. You could use your finger as well, but once I put the brow gel down, I'll take the back of my tweezers and I'll kind of use it to stamp the brow hairs down and like plaster them down to my face, especially the inner part, and it helps so much. You could use your fingers, but I love how the tweezer is flat, so it just really helps you to lay your brows down nicely. Nobody asked, but I'm gonna tell you anyway. Too Faced Italian Spritz eyeshadow palette is what's on my eyes. I pretty much used a combination of some of these neutrals here, and then I did this little like shadow wing with a bit of the color Mamma Mia. and the brown color. And then lashes, I used the Ardell Demi Wispies actually. I'm kicking it back old school. These are classics, but they're so pretty and they're not too long. And now I'm just gonna set my makeup with my LYS Natural Finish setting spray. I've been actually really loving this so far as well. I've only used it a couple times. I'm still testing it out, but really, really nice. It's a good, just natural finish setting spray, truly, just like the name. Okay, the makeup is nice and settled into the skin now. I wanted to show you guys what the concealer looks like. So I do have fine lines, you can see. No matter what concealer I use, they're gonna settle because I just naturally have fine lines. However, what I noticed is that when I drag the skin down very gently, you can see that it looks totally smooth. So the concealer is not really settling into those fine lines. Like as I pull down, there aren't like a ton of little tiny stripes of the product settled into my tiny little fine lines. And the same thing on this side too. Like it still looks really smooth as I drag it down. I just naturally have fine lines, so like I said, no matter what products I use over top, they're gonna show because you can't cover up fine lines, you know what I mean? But there's certain concealers where those little lines are emphasized more than with other formulas. It totally depends. So the concealer is truly not drying, and it definitely has a really good, comfortable, natural finish. So I really enjoy that about it, and I really love the way that it's looking right now. I think this is as smooth as my under eyes can look. And the other concealers that I have tried that are new that I have this one to compare to is the one from Makeup by Mario and Natasha Denona. I just tried these out in my last video, so if you have not seen that, I will link that somewhere here on the screen. But these concealers compared to the one from HAUS Labs are much more hydrating and glowy on the under eyes, which I do really love. But I think for that reason is why I had a little extra creasing on my under eyes versus the one with HAUS Labs. This one definitely looks much smoother right now, first impressions, versus these two. Comparing Natasha Denona and Makeup by Mario, I actually liked the way the Makeup by Mario one wore more than the one from Natasha Denona. This one creased pretty excessively at the end of the day, and it was really settling into all my little fine lines. Also, I got bad shades of these two concealers as well, so I need to just pretty much repurchase these and get perfect shades because neither one of these, all three of them, they're just not a good match. The one from Makeup by Mario is a little bit too yellow, Natasha Denona is too light, and same with the HAUS Labs, it's a little bit too light. I'm not crazy about either of these concealers, to be honest. I have other high-end favorites that I prefer, but I'm gonna continue to use these, definitely get some better shade matches, and hopefully I'll have a better outcome the more that I use them. So we're gonna see how this one from HAUS Labs wears right now. I will say, I think for me personally, I like the way it looks more with a brush, because then I feel like I don't have to layer the product and use an excess amount, whereas with the sponge, sometimes I find myself using a little extra product because the sponge will absorb a little excess concealer. So truly comes down to what you like. If you want something more natural, use a sponge. If you want better coverage with using less product, use a brush. But we'll see how it wears. So I'm gonna come back in a few hours. It's around the afternoon time right now, and I will see you guys in a little, and we'll see how everything looks. Okay, I'm in the car, natural daylight, to show you guys how the concealer is looking. I'm definitely loving the brush side a little bit more than the sponge side, only because I always say with a brush, you're gonna get a little bit more coverage, and I feel like it looks slightly smoother, but I do like it with a sponge too. I think it totally depends on the makeup look that you're going for the day, but there isn't any excess creasing also, by the way. It's just my normal, you know, little fine lines that are peeking through, which is inevitable, of course, because they're there. So no matter what concealer or product I use under there, I'm gonna have my little fine lines there, but it still looks so smooth, especially the brush side. I'm actually really into this concealer so far. I also haven't touched up my makeup at all today, and I love the way the complexion looks. So very impressed so far. So it is a few days later. I wanted to pop in here because I wanted to play with the concealer a couple more times before giving you guys some of my final thoughts, but I definitely will continue using this, and I'm gonna get another shade the minute that this goes back in stock because this is not my perfect match. And whenever I don't have a perfect match, I feel like it kind of throws things off a little bit. I mentioned earlier in the video that it was more of a thicker consistency, and I still feel that way. I think the concealer has more of a whipped texture, but it is so blendable. It gives a natural, almost like blurred effect to the skin. Personally, haven't built it up because I don't really feel like I need to, and just to avoid any excessive creasing, but I honestly haven't really gotten any excessive creasing with this concealer. It's just like the foundation in the sense that it is very long wearing. It doesn't look dry. For some reason, this side looks a little bit more, like a little little bit more creasy in this area versus my right eye. My right side of my face and just everything, it's always way more on point than the left. But if you have fine lines, this is of course not going to cover up those fine lines, but it's not going to settle excessively into those little fine lines and make your under eyes look really crepey or dry. On the Sephora app, it apparently says that my match would be color 14, which is light peach. I don't know, I'm gonna try that out, but then I also think I'm gonna order color 24, light medium neutral, which is light medium with balanced undertones. I think that's gonna be the color that I get. I don't know about the color 14. I might get 2 more shades and kind of figure it out because I am really loving this formula. I think this has really good lasting power throughout the day. Setting is key, I think, with any concealer, but I'm really loving the formula. I feel like it's wearing so nice because it isn't really super dewy. It's not very matte. It's just a true natural finish concealer. I also wanted to show you guys what the concealer looked like after a full day of wearing it. The first time that I tried it out, I forgot to show you, but that is what it looks like. I think, again, it wore really nicely. I love that this doesn't flake. It doesn't feel dry, heavy, cakey. I also feel like you could totally use this on no makeup days because it is so skin-like, but it still provides coverage. Something else that I think is so helpful as well is that there is a shade reference guide based on your foundation shade in the HAUS Labs foundation. It'll give you a concealer to match and a concealer to brighten, which I really like. So final thoughts so far, I think if you like the foundation, you'll really like the concealer. I'm into it. I'm into the wearability. I'm into the formula. I'm here for it. So let me know if you guys have tried this or any of the other concealers that I mentioned down below. Thank you guys for being here. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave if you have not already, and I cannot wait to see you very soon in my next video. Bye.